Hi everyone. I'm not here today to make any funny jokes or just share any elaborate projects with you. Um, Today I'm really just here to talk to you about the transformative power of cinema. Well, I mean, I'm not really just cinema, but just art as a whole. So I recently discovered the experimental short film Capybara Walking, which some of you may be familiar with, but I doubt it. It is directed by Edward Muybridge, and it suffice it to say, it's just changed my life. I've lost sleep and I've lost friends over this film, and I just cannot get it out of my head no matter what I do. And I really just wanted to condense my thoughts and my feelings into something, so I opted to make a video essay to do that. Yeah, this video is by no means going to be very intense. It's hopefully will be pretty laid back, but I'm just hoping that in making this, everyone will be able to take in the content of the film, I guess, and just understand where I'm coming from. I will just add a brief spoiler warning. I go very in depth as to the plot of the film. For some reason, it's free on YouTube. I think it's a lot more valuable than that, but I guess it's a bit historical, so it's in the public domain. I'll link it in the description, so if you want to watch it, I would do that before you watch this, so you're not in the dark about any plot points or just elements that I'm going to discuss. I would highly recommend that after you watch the film, you don't just move on. I would take time to digest it and think about it, because it's a lot. You should let it have its effect on you. Let it run its course, I guess. I had to watch it several times personally to understand it and just work through the emotions that it brought up within me. So if you do so, I understand, and you're not alone in that. Yeah. So once you've seen it, hopefully this video can do it some justice. I doubt it, but hope you enjoy it at the very least. So for over a century now, film has been one of the leading mediums for artistic expression in our culture. We've seen films like 2001: A Space Odyssey and Schindler's List, Citizen Kane, etc., etc. But they would not be here if not for the invention of the camera itself. What a camera really is an eye into humanity. It's a device, yes, but with it we capture our lives, our thoughts, our ideas, and our desires, and there's really no limit to what can be captured through the camera, but there could be, and I think there is, an apex, or like a magnum opus of the camera, if you will. And I would argue that Capybara Walking is that magnum opus. So for some context, Capybara Walking was shot by the revolutionary and rather controversial photographer Edward Muybridge. He was a pioneer in cinematic history, just plain and simple. His life was full of pain and tragedy, and his work can often depict that. During his career, he produced and directed thousands, which is remarkable, of photographic sequences of humans and animals and other just random things in motion, essentially. And some of them include classics like Sally Gardner at a gallop and Buffalo Running. But his crowning achievement really is Capybara Walking, which he shot in 1887. The film, to the average viewer, appears to just be a simple study in movement, but upon closer inspection, it just signifies so much more than that, in my opinion. Okay, so the first thing we see as the audience is our protagonist, who is the capybara. From the beginning, he's presented very brutally and honestly, as you can see here. There's no fade-in or title sequence, as it just goes right in. In that, there's no character introduction. Muybridge wants us to see our protagonist for who he truly is, which is just a capybara. Now, the capybara itself represents many things. As you may know, it's the largest rodent in the animal kingdom. Its name derives from the Tupi language, which means one who eats slender leaves. Capybaras are actually often used as chairs by other animals, and sometimes they're even referred to with cruel nicknames such as nature's ottoman, yet they endure their harsh fates with the staunch stoicism of Marcus Aurelius. The so-called animal, the largest rodent in the world, clearly does not belong in its own order, Rodentia. It longs to be freed from its own social and societal constraints. It just wants to be its own master, which deep down, don't we all? So, society has condemned the capybara to fulfill its role as nature's ottoman, as they say. It's cursed to a life as a slave and an object for the use of others. Its longing is freedom, and in this case, he, the capybara I'll refer to him as a he for the sake of this essay, he is tired of the life he has lived. He wants to escape. In this film, the information is not explained to the viewer. It's our job to seek it out. This is one of the first of many of the convention-defying choices that Muybridge makes in the film. It's especially in the plot and structure of the film. Anyway, now that we have that understood and we've taken in the primary plight of the character, we can move on to the next frame. So as we move to the next frame, we see the capybara take his first step. It's a rudimentary motion, yeah, but what's he taking the step towards? Well, as we learned from the first frame, his longing is for freedom, and in this one simple motion, he's taking his first step towards that freedom, which is the beginning of his arc as a character. So, the next few frames are very similar to the second one in the actual structure. However, there are several details that you may miss if you're watching it quickly. For one thing, he continues to take steps towards his destiny, and he's also, in leaning forward, he's ultimately symbolizing the liberty that's growing within him. He's very emboldened, and he will stop at nothing. He's growing closer towards the destiny he's looking for. Then we move on to slide 4, where suddenly the frame is darkened. While this could simply be brushed off as just a limitation of the technology at the time, there's no way it's a coincidence. Those who truly pursue cinema, I would say, know that this is a shadow of the things to come. It's his guilt and his doubt creeping in. And I would say that this is the first conflict that we see in the film, which is notable. But yeah, incredible frame. Definitely one of my favorites of all time, really. And then we move on. And in frame 5, it's slightly lighter again. It's representing him overcoming those fears and doubts we saw in frame 4 and just moving forward. He's resolved yet again to work towards what he sees on the horizon, even though it's so faint in his mind. At this point, he's moved, by my best estimation, about a quarter of a foot towards his calling. And this may seem slow, yeah, but I mean, he's making progress, and that's something we can see in our own lives. Progress is often very slow, but it is crucial, and we shouldn't overlook it. So in summary, the movement of the capybara in capybara walking is beautiful, just beautiful and original metaphor for this progress. He takes his time because he knows that in order to get what he wants, he needs to have patience, and that's very practical. But we're not done yet, so I won't get too much into the meaning of the film. I will move on. So, despite his patience, as you can see here in the 6th frame, he returns to the darkness we saw in frame 4. But this time, it does not by any means represent his doubt. This frame represents defeat. It's crushing. His journey's been stopped, and he's more or less frozen in time, just completely engulfed, almost, not completely, but more or less engulfed in darkness and shadows that are just overwhelming him. He can't escape what it is that stopped him, and we, as an audience, aren't told what it is. We just know that whoever or whatever it is, its presence is looming over our hero, and that's just absolutely chilling. When I first realized the magnitude of this frame, I was just completely shocked. It was a lot. I will do my best to move on now. As we move on, obviously just hanging onto the edges of our seats, we abruptly cut back to the first frame. It's very jarring and very confusing, and in some ways that's hurtful. We've seen our hero make so much progress towards fulfilling his life's calling, but he just gets beaten down and put back where he started, just so abruptly. And it may seem like an accident. It almost does seem like an accident, but it's most certainly not. In making such a bold cut, Muybridge is symbolizing the futility of our actions. We may think we're making progress, but in the face of the universe, we're just dust and vapor. As you can see, he just continues to repeat his actions, only to achieve the same results. He continues to return from where he started from, just over and over again. His actions are seemingly useless in the face of the world around him, and based on the role that world has given him. Muybridge shows us this cut 32 times. Each time it hurts progressively more and more. Then eventually the film just stops. With each cut, you get the sense that the capybara is trying to make a difference, but he just cannot. He's confined. Yet he keeps walking. And that's really the key to understanding capybara walking. He never gives up in the face of adversity. The futility of his actions hits him in the face time and time again, 32 times, but he just keeps walking until the bitter end. But ultimately, in showing us all 32 of these cuts, Muybridge is showing us that we must face life as the capybara. Our progress may seem futile, and our efforts may not seem worthwhile, but they matter. Only when we realize this can the film truly end. But does it ever truly end in this case? We don't find out. We just see him keep walking. But on the final cut, he isn't put back into his starting place. Is it possible that he's finally found the freedom he was looking for? Though we're left without any clear semblance of an answer, I believe that that's what Muybridge is implying. Though life beats you down and throws your progress in the garbage, if you keep walking, it can pay off eventually. Capybara Walking, though it wasn't heralded as the classic that it should have been, in my opinion, at the time of its release, it's recently found somewhat of a cult following. It's received a 4.6 rating on Letterboxd, last I checked, which ranks it among films such as The Godfather, 12 Angry Men, and Seven Samurai, which is astounding. And that alone demonstrates the universal message of capybara walking. We are all the capybara in one way or another. It's our duty to face life, no matter how many times it slaps us in the face, and get back up to keep walking until we can't walk anymore. So, now that you all know about the film, I'd highly encourage and implore you to watch it again while just keeping in mind everything that you just heard. Consider the cuts and the tools that Muybridge is using to symbolize just so many different complex feelings, things, ideas, emotions. So, in the end, while yes, Capybara Walking is a very dense film, once you unpack it, it begins to mean so much. Capybara Walking has changed my life, and I hope it changes yours. I know the video did no justice to the film itself, but I hope that it could at least help you to understand it and its plot better. And I hope that the message of the capybara sticks with you, and that you can all find the strength to just keep walking. Because remember, the capybara walked so that we can run. So, thank you, and I'll see you whenever I make another video.